Hey everyone, my name is Clyde, and many of you know that I am a destroyer main. This destroyer is Velos, a Greek ship that is coming to World of Warships very, very soon. Velos was originally built for the United States Navy as USS Charette, and she served in the Navy there until 1947 when she was decommissioned after World War II. In June of 1959, she was transferred to the Greek Navy, where she served until 1991 before becoming a museum ship, and I believe she's still visitable today. In World of Warships, Velos is represented as a Tier 9, 4-gun Fletcher variant with a single torpedo rack that has some interesting characteristics that we're going to cover in a little bit more detail here in just a moment. Wargaming will first release Velos via a web campaign with sequential bundles starting on October 21st. After the campaign is over, Velos will be unavailable until early 2023, when she'll return to the premium shop for doubloons. WoW's players will remember the USS Black campaign from back in June of this year, and this event is probably going to be pretty similar. So far, we have pretty limited information on the campaign, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to run, that kind of stuff. But Wargaming has promised us a dedicated article very soon about how this is going to work. In fact, it could even be out now as you're watching this, so it might be worth checking the World of Warships website. As soon as I've seen that article, I'll include the link down in the description of this video so that it's really easy for you to find it. All right, Clyde, but what is this going to cost me? I can hear you asking. It's a valid question. Let's talk about it. So far, pricing information has not yet been released for the sequential bundles or the portal campaign or any of that, but we can take a look at what they did for USS Black to see what Wargaming might be up to. Now, during that campaign, the total cost to get USS Black was about $175, but you could earn enough of the tokens, the funky currency, to knock that price down by about $10 US. Now, to be fair to Wargaming, you got a lot more than USS Black in the sequential bundles, but to be fair to the World of Warships community, $175 is simply too much money to pay for a pixel boat. I think that's kind of ridiculous. And so back then I encouraged everyone to wait and get Black for coal when it would become available for that currency a little bit later. But Velos won't be available for coal. She'll be available for dubs around the beginning of 2023. But that doesn't mean you have to pay full price. Let me explain to you what I mean. First off, for this calculation, let me state a couple of assumptions. The first is that because Tier 9 premiums tend to cost 19,300 dubs, I assume that Velos will cost 19,300 doubloons when she's released early in 2023. I'm also assuming that you have provided your birthday, I think it's just month and date, to Wargaming, and that they have given you a birthday coupon, and that like so many of the other World of Warships players, your birthday was also randomly in October. Congratulations, happy birthday. If you do have your birthday coupon available, use it right now to buy 7,500 doubloons. This will cost you $29.70 US, and Wargaming will give you 7,425 doubloons as a bonus because you used your coupon. This gives you a total of 14,925 doubloons. Then, the hard part. Wait until Velos is released early next year. This will be difficult. Once it is, then go into the premium shop inside, or I guess into the armory inside the World of Warships client and choose to purchase the ship. But make sure, before you do, make sure you use your Ships for Doubloons coupon. This reduces the doubloons cost of the ship by 25%. Assuming again that Velos is that standard 19,300 dubs, she will cost 14,475 dubs when you use that 25% off doubloons coupon. This will basically allow you to buy the ship for just under $30. In fact, you'll get Velos and you'll have an extra 450 dubs left over. Of course, if you don't have the birthday coupon available, you won't be able to take advantage of this deal. And so I still encourage you to hold off and wait and buy her in 2023. You can still use the 25% off coupon, and that'll bring the price down from about $77 US to $57.90 US. Long story short, you don't have to pay full price, and the web campaign is a good deal, but only if you want all of the stuff in the sequential bundles. If you don't, and you're just buying your way through that stuff to get to the ship, you are spending way more money than you need to. And I will say to you now, if you do that, you are doing so with intent and not out of ignorance because you've watched this video. You know that there's a better way. Okay, all that out of the way, you've got all of your buying options, probably, not sure, not guaranteed, but estimated to be about $175, $57.90, or just under $30. These are your choices. Do what you will. Or, of course, choice number 4, don't buy the ship at all and enjoy one of the many other Fletchers in the game. Okay, now let's start talking about Velos and what makes her cool or not cool. Let's get into it. Velos is a Fletcher class destroyer, so for comparables, I had a lot of options. I'm going to be going with just using the Fletcher herself and the Kid. Now, Kid's technically a tier 8, but her configuration is very similar to Velos, single torp launcher, that kind of a thing. I'm going to leave out Chungmu because Chungmu has deep water torpedoes, and I left out Black because Black has radar, and that's kind of a funky version of the ship as well. At times, of course, I may compare Velos against all of the tier 9 destroyers just to kind of give a at-tier comparison, and when I do that, I'll be sure to be clear about that. For consumables, Velos is equipped with a damage control party and a smoke module, whereas Fletcher and Kid have to choose between either speed boost or defensive AA fire. Velos gets both speed boost and a turbo AA module. Unlike the tier 8 Kid, neither Velos nor Fletcher have a hull repair module equipped. This is the camo that comes with Velos. Wargaming, stop it. Give me a camouflage when we get a premium ship. This doesn't count, dude. It's not just this ship. We talked about this in the Malta video. It's Malta, it's Sevastopol, it's Maya, it's Forrest Sherman, now it's Velos. There are probably more that I'm forgetting, but this is like mega lazy camo design. I don't know if you're trying to get us to use consumable camos by not giving us permanent camos anymore, but this has to stop. Give me the pretty camos, please. Now, we've been looking at a different camo throughout this thing. How do you get to exterior? This camo, if it's like the USS Black campaign, this camo is probably only going to be available if you complete the sequential bundle campaign thing that's going to fire up here this week. So, unfortunately, this is a really sick camo. I think it looks a little bit like Perry the Platypus right here, and I'll put a meme up on the screen that I made about this. But I think it's a really cool looking camo. I think it's cool because it's Greek and it's got like the ramming thing up here. And of course the colors are beautiful, well designed. But unfortunately, I think this camo is going to be limited to a very small number of players who choose to buy the ship through the Portal campaign. So now we're to the part of our hot take video where we're going to talk about various characteristics of the ship and give them scores or ratings. First, we're going to talk about the main battery on Velos. So Velos has the same AP and HE shells that you find on Fletcher or Kid, and as a result, they're going to have very similar, very familiar flight characteristics. Anybody who's played either of those ships are going to know how the guns on Velos feel. Kid and Fletcher both have 5 guns with a 3.3 second reload, whereas Velos has 4 guns with a 2.5 second reload. And the result there is that Velos actually has slightly better DPM in both AP and HE than either of those ships. I think the guns feel pretty darn good on this thing. They're popping off all the time, and because they reload slightly quicker, it's just a lot of fun to see them slinging shells towards an enemy. You can pair this with the relatively long-lasting smoke that deploys from the ship and get a lot of farming done. So I'm going to rate the guns on Velos a 4. Next, let's talk about torpedoes. So Velos and Fletcher are equipped with this same torpedoes. They do 19,000 damage, they travel 10.5 kilometers, and they do about 66 knots before you start trying to upgrade them in any way. Now, despite only having a single launcher, Velos has nearly the same torpedo DPM as Fletcher, and that's because her torpedo reload is incredibly fast, just 60 seconds, which for a tier 9 ship is very, very quick, particularly given that those torps do 19k damage apiece. Fletcher's reload is 106 seconds, just for comparison. This does prevent you from putting out a huge wall of 10 torpedoes, and that is a disadvantage for Velos. However, captains who are able to do reliable torpedo work, launching a single rack at a time, are going to find themselves very happy with Velos and its rapid reloader. Now, Kid also has a single torpedo rack, but has a reload time of 122 seconds, a much more typical number for a tier 8, tier 9, tier 10 American destroyer. And that forces that ship to use more of a smoke and gun technique almost exclusively, whereas Velos can smoke and gun and launch twice as many torpedoes as Kid. Velos also fires its torpedoes with the classically narrow spreads that you come to expect on a pan-European destroyer rather than the wider patterns you see on the US destroyers or other nations. And this is great for captains who are able to launch and land torpedoes with precision and accuracy because it lets you narrow that focus, get more damage in a smaller area of the sea. In my build, Velos reloads its torps in about 46 seconds, and they travel at 73 knots. I'll give you my build later so you can see how I put the ship together. But what's fun about this is you're always maneuvering and angling and setting up for your next torpedo launch, and what's great is that because your torps reload as fast as almost all of the tier 5 destroyers, you're constantly able to launch torpedoes and put fish in the water because they're always ready. Now, while this quick reload almost makes up for the lack of a second launcher, I do feel like that is a bit of a penalty. And so I'm going to rate Velos's torpedoes at a 3, but they almost got a 4 from me. I'm telling you, they are so close to a 4, it hurts. When it comes to survivability and concealment, Velos has an excellent detection range of 5.8 kilometers by sea, ranking 5th out of all destroyers at Tier 9. That's 100 meters worse than HMS Jutland and 100 meters better than USS Black. Velos has 17,100 hit points, which is exactly the same as Fletcher, Chungmu, and Black. And while this is a bit on the lower side, her excellent concealment and long-lasting US-style smoke allow her to avoid damage rather than tanking it. I'm going to rate Velos a 4 in this category. On paper, Velos has a fairly average AA capability. She has 1 fewer flak puff than her comparables, and she ranks 10th out of 21 destroyers at Tier 9 when sorting by Ship Tool's AA strength score. In practice, though, she does seem to do pretty well against enemy aircraft, and that's largely due to the fact that she has a defensive AA module, and that provides a 150% DPS boost. Now, technically, the defensive AA module on Fletcher is better. It does a 200% boost, but Fletcher has to trade away the speed boost module that she's equipped with in order to take that out, whereas that's not a problem for Velos. She always goes to sea with the ability to knock down some enemy aircraft. I'm going to rate Velos a 4 for anti-aircraft. Next, we'll talk about maneuverability. So Velos has handling characteristics that are almost identical to those of the Kid. So if you're familiar with driving that destroyer around, then you're going to know exactly how Velos will feel when you're giving it specific inputs. Check out this graph that I made drag racing the different Fletcher class destroyers. Velos, Kid, and Chungmu perform almost exactly identically, with USS Black accelerating faster, but ultimately being outrun by Fletcher herself. Velos, Kid, and Chungmu all outpace Fletcher by 1.5 knots, topping out at about 38 knots. Now, Velos ranks 6th out of all 21 destroyers at Tier 9 for both speed and rudder shift, and 7th for turning radius. I ended up using Swift and Silence in my build, and I would run a speed signal on Velos because I can never, ever get enough speed out of my destroyers, but I feel like she was decently nimble. I'm going to go ahead and give her a 4 for maneuverability. When it comes to ease of play, Velos is not very complicated. She runs, she guns, and she launches torpedoes that are pretty easy to land on your targets. I don't think she's particularly gimmicky, and I think some players will rejoice at that, right? We're maybe a little tired of ships with little tricks and things like that. But other players might think that this ship feels like it stepped out of a time machine from 2017. All in all, I think Velos is a fairly capable ship and fairly reasonable to play, but not very tricky to play, and that means that the skill floor is relatively low. I think I'll rate Velos a 4 for ease of play. Okay, Clyde, so is Velos fun to play? Yeah, actually, I think Velos is pretty fun. She's got a 4-gun configuration that does more work than Fletcher's 5-gun configuration, which means that Velos guns go burr. She's got a quick reloading torpedo launcher, which means you can always be plotting your next launch, and because mine in my build reload in 46 seconds, that launch is coming very soon. That's fun. I mean, it's not gimmicky, it doesn't change the game, but it's fun. So I think Velos earns a very solid and well-deserved 3 in the fun category. So what about competitive modes, ranked battles, clan battles, that kind of thing? I think Velos could probably be fine in those modes, but I don't know if she's going to be anybody's #1 pick. Before the Tier 8 clan battle season, we knew that Kiev, Le Terrible, Lif, and Task were going to be top choices for people who are meta crazy, because we'd seen that before in previous Tier 8 clan battle seasons. I kind of thought that maybe we'd see a few more kids than we did. We did see a couple of kids when we played, but not nearly that many. And maybe it was the slow loading torpedoes that caused Kid to not be selected. The gun DPM's fine, the hull repair is great, the concealment was good, but the lack of torpedoes was a big impact. I wonder if Velos would suffer the same fate, although her torpedoes reload faster, she doesn't have the hull repair that Kid brings to the table. So I don't know, I mean, I think you could definitely get away with Velos in ranked battles, but I don't know that she's going to be a top shelf pick for people going into clan battles or tournament play. And that's just because US style destroyers have not really been in style for that kind of a thing for quite some time. It's just not where the meta's at right now. That said, I think Velos is a good ship. I'm not going to rate her low like a 1 or a 2. Let's give her a 3 for competitive, and we'll move on to our build. For the captain build for Velos, we're going to start with preventative maintenance to keep our systems online. We'll take last stand so that the ship is never dead in the water, even if our engine and our rudder get knocked out. We'll take Survivability Expert, which gives us 3,150 more hit points. And finally, we'll take Concealment Expert as our 10th point to reduce the concealment of the ship down to 5.8 kilometers. You can see that right here. These 4 skills over here basically help us to improve our DPM and make our torpedoes more accurate. How do we do that? Well, number 1, we'll take Adrenaline Rush. As we take damage, our reload for both torpedoes and main battery is going to get faster. We'll do main battery and AA specialist. This increases our reload time and increases our continuous AA damage to SWAT planes. That brings our main battery reload down to 2.4 from 2.5. That's not a lot, but it's decent, and I like the extra AA boost that I get because it does mean that airplanes suffer when they get too close. We'll also go with Swift Fish. This helps us to push our torpedo speed up to 73 knots. And finally, Fill the Tubes reloads the torpedoes 10% faster. And as you can see, my reload here is 45.9 seconds for torpedoes. Okay, let's talk about modules and upgrades real quick. Number 1, main armaments modification 1. This is just going to help keep our main armaments working reliably. Second slot, I went with engine boost modification because I'm a speed freak and I have to go faster all the time. This might not be for everybody. If you don't want to spend the coal, go with engine room protection. And maybe you want to make this thing an AA monster, go with defensive AA fire modification 1. If you did that, it might be worth coming into your captain build and swapping out main battery and AA specialist for superintendent, so you get an extra charge of turbo AA. But if you do that, remember you are giving up your 10% buff to continuous AA damage, so there is a trade-off there. In slot 3, I went with torpedo tubes modification to increase the speed of my torpedoes. Remember, faster torpedoes hit targets more reliably, and then of course protect them from becoming incapacitated and increase the rotation speed. Propulsion modification was my pick here. I could have gone with steering gears, but 3.9 seconds over here seemed fast enough for rudder shift time for me, and depth charge modification just does not seem necessary right now as the game stands today. In slot 5, I went with concealment modification. This really makes the most sense for destroyers, and it helps us get down to 5.8 kilometers. And then finally, torpedo tubes modification 2 reduces our reload time by 15%. It does increase the risk of our incapacitation of the torpedo tube launcher, but that 15% really is an important part of the recipe that gets us down to 45.9 seconds. And those are my upgrades on the Velos. Thank you so much for watching this video about Velos. I hope this helped to inform you and teach you a little bit more about what this ship is and what it isn't. Let me know what you think down below. Are you going to get Velos? Are you going to pass on it? If you're going to get it, how are you going to get it? Are you going to wait and do the $30 trick with the coupons and things? Are you going to buy the sequential bundles? What do you think? How would you build Velos? Would you build it differently than I did? Maybe you've got some cool idea that I haven't thought of. If you want to get a hold of me or anything, you have any questions, hit me up in the comments down below, and I will try to get back to as many of you as I possibly can. Make sure you consider joining the Clyde Plays Discord. I'm on there all the time, and it's an easy place to get a hold of me and all the great people in the Clyde Plays community. We're about to hit 2,000 subscribers. If we get 2,000 subscribers, maybe we'll do a YouTube live event. That seems like that'd be cool, like a live stream. Let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in. And if you watched this video all the way to the end, go down into the comments and say, Velos forever! And that's all I got. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Be cool, be nice, take it easy, and we'll catch you in the next video. Take care, Captains. Bye. How do I stop this thing?